"Ma'am, you can't just drive a bulldozer onto private land," I told her, but she didn't even look at me. Karen Whitmore, our new HOA president, stood there with her clipboard, barking orders at a contractor like she owned the mountain. My dad built this cabin with his bare hands. I grew up here, learned to fish here, buried him right behind those trees. And now they're tearing it down because it doesn't fit the new community vision? I missed his funeral to finish a job out of state, and this is what I came home to: sawdust, tire marks, and Karen calling it progress. I wasn't about to let that slide. I don't think I've ever felt my stomach drop like that before when I drove up that old dirt road, the one my father used to walk barefoot when he was fixing the fence line. I barely recognized it. The trees were gone. The air didn't even smell like pine anymore. It smelled like asphalt and diesel. 3 years. That's all it had been since I'd last been here. I'd been working construction down in Arizona, trying to keep things together after Dad passed. He'd left me this land. 47 acres of forest wrapped around a small lake, fenced and quiet. It was supposed to be a retreat, a place to rebuild. Instead, I was standing in the middle of someone else's dream. Or nightmare. The cabin, our cabin, looked like it had been chewed up by a machine. Half of the roof was missing, the porch was crushed under tire tracks, and pieces of the chimney were scattered like broken bones. Just behind it, I could see a line of new homes, modern boxes painted beige and white, all lined up on what used to be my father's meadow. I remember whispering to myself, "What the hell is this?" And then I saw her, Karen Whitmore, president of the Clear Ridge HOA. Her blazer looked like it cost more than the truck I drove. She was standing near the bulldozer, shouting something to a group of workers who looked just as confused as I was. I hadn't even said a word yet, and she was already rolling her eyes like she'd been expecting me. "Sir, you're trespassing on an active development site," she said the moment she saw me. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. "Trespassing? This is my land." Her tone didn't change. "This parcel belongs to Clear Ridge Community Development. Maybe you should check with your county office before making accusations." That's when something inside me clicked. I didn't come back for a fight. I came to see what was left of my family's history. But now, I wanted answers. I walked toward her, boots kicking up dust. "My father bought this land in 1987, paid it off by 2003. There's a deed in his name, and mine now. So tell me, who gave you permission to build 90 homes here?" She held up a folder. "According to our records, this plot was abandoned after property taxes weren't paid. It was reclaimed, rezoned, and approved for residential development. You can appeal it through court, but it won't change the fact that this is now an HOA-governed community." That word, abandoned, burned in my chest. My father never missed a payment in his life. He was the kind of man who kept receipts for fence nails from 1994. Something wasn't right. I stood there, watching her give orders, watching men lift debris from what used to be my porch. Every board they touched felt like they were taking a piece of him. A piece of me. I took a deep breath. "All right," I said quietly. "You want to play legal?" "I'll bring the law," Karen smirked, tapping her clipboard. "Please do. You'll find we're quite thorough here." Then she turned her back and waved to the driver of the bulldozer. "Finish it!" The sound of that engine starting still echoes in my head. The next morning, I woke up on what was left of my porch, sleeping bag, thermos, and all. I wasn't leaving, not yet, not until I knew what they'd done. The bulldozer was parked silent by the lake, dew glistening on its steel frame. A few laborers showed up early, whispering among themselves, clearly uncomfortable with me still being there. One of them, a younger guy, maybe 25, came up to me quietly. "Hey, sir, I don't think you're supposed to be here today." "Yeah," I said, sipping coffee from a chipped mug. "That makes 2 of us." He looked down at the dirt, then leaned in. "They told us this land was bought last year. Clean transfer. But..." He hesitated. "Everyone keeps saying something's off with the paperwork. You didn't hear that from me." And just like that, the first crack showed. By noon, I was sitting in the dusty lobby of the county clerk's office, flipping through property records. The same lady who had helped my dad years ago still worked there, Mrs. Daniels. She blinked when she saw my name. Adam Lorne? Oh, honey, I remember your father. He used to bring us fresh fish every spring. Yeah, well, I said, forcing a smile. They're bulldozing his cabin right now. Her face changed immediately. What? That can't be right. I handed her a copy of the development map I'd pulled from the HOA's brochure. The logo for Clear Ridge Community stretched right across our old property line. She scanned it, frowning deeper with every line. This parcel, she muttered, was never transferred. I don't have any record of a sale. I leaned forward. Then how does an HOA build 90 homes on it? Her voice lowered. They shouldn't have been able to, but sometimes developers temporarily reassign land through rezoning, usually if no one disputes it. It's not legal, but it happens when no one's watching. No one's watching. That's what happens when you're away too long, I thought. They rewrite history while you're gone. I thanked her, grabbed the photocopies she printed, and headed straight to the HOA office, a polished glass building sitting smugly in the middle of the new subdivision. Families were moving in, kids riding bikes, sprinklers running. They had no idea they were standing on stolen dirt. Inside, Karen Whitmore was talking to a man in a blue suit, the kind of guy who didn't even pretend to care about people like me. She saw me, froze for half a second, then put on that fake smile she wore like armor. Mr. Lorne, she said coolly, I hope you're here to file your removal paperwork. This really isn't a good time. I'll make it one, I said, tossing the copies of the deed on her desk. You built your kingdom on my land, Karen. The deed never transferred and the taxes were paid every year. You can check the receipts. The man beside her spoke up. I'm attorney Mark Evers, counsel for the HOA. If there's a misunderstanding, we'll handle it legally. You're trespassing right now. Good, I said. Then you won't mind if I file a lawsuit for trespassing too. Karen's face tightened. For a second, the calm, confident president vanished, replaced by something raw. Fear. But she covered it quickly. You're wasting your time, Mr. Lorne. The project's nearly complete. No court will halt a $16 million development. Then I'll let them finish, I said softly, echoing her arrogance back to her. And when they do, I'll pull the deed out in court. I walked out, her laughter following me down the hall, but it didn't sound confident. It sounded nervous. That was the day I stopped being angry and started being methodical. That night, I sat in my truck by the lake, headlights off, listening to the hum of the new homes across the hill. Their porch lights flickered on one by one, a perfect little community built on what used to be mine. I wasn't planning on storming in or yelling anymore. I needed strategy, not rage. My first call was to Evelyn Shore, a property rights attorney from Bozeman. She wasn't cheap, but she was known for one thing. She hated HOA corruption with a passion that made her dangerous. When she picked up, her voice was calm but clipped. Mr. Lorne, I've reviewed the scans you sent me. You've got something real. They didn't just overstep. They falsified a parcel inclusion. What does that mean, exactly? It means, she said, they used a temporary zoning overlay to make it look like your property was part of their district. Probably used a fake plat signature. It's forgery, Adam. The way she said my name, steady, precise, made my pulse quicken. For the first time, I wasn't just fighting feelings. I had a case. By the next morning, Evelyn and I met at a diner halfway between Bozeman and the lake. She arrived with a leather folder and a black coffee, no sugar. Tell me everything from the start, she said. I walked her through it, the bulldozer, Karen's smirk, the deed, my father's legacy. She listened without interrupting, eyes sharp and analytical. When I finished, she pushed the folder toward me. Here's what we're doing. First, we file a temporary injunction to freeze all further construction. That'll stall the project legally. Second, we subpoena their internal emails. They'll try to bury the zoning correspondence, but we'll find it. And third? I asked. Third, she said, taking a slow sip of coffee, we let them hang themselves in court. I smiled for the first time in days. You make it sound easy. Oh, it's not, she said. They'll try to destroy you publicly first. Character assassination, trespassing charges, maybe even defamation. They'll make you look like the unhinged neighbor who lost his mind over progress. They already started that, I muttered. Then we stay ahead of them. We spent the rest of the morning drafting the injunction. Evelyn's confidence was surgical. She knew every loophole, every clause that could turn the HOA's weapon back on itself. When I left the diner, I drove back to the cabin ruins and found a surprise waiting. Police tape. 2 sheriff cruisers were parked by the gravel road, and Karen was standing there, arms folded, pretending to talk officially. Her tone dropped when she saw me. Adam, there's been another complaint, she said in that rehearsed voice. You've been warned multiple times about trespassing and obstruction of development. On my own land? Legally speaking, this isn't yours right now. The deputy beside her shifted uncomfortably. Sir, we're just here to keep things calm. If you could step back, we'd appreciate it. I looked at him, young, unsure, then back at Karen. Enjoy it while it lasts, I said. Because when that injunction hits your desk tomorrow, it's your turn to step back. Her face paled slightly. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I already did, I said, walking past her toward my truck. The deputy called out, Sir. I stopped and turned. Don't worry, deputy. You'll see my name on the court order before lunch. The way Karen's expression cracked in that moment, from smug control to visible panic, told me everything I needed. The walls were closing in and she could feel it. That night, I emailed Evelyn. She's starting to sweat. Let's push harder. Her reply came 2 minutes later. Perfect. Tomorrow we start digging into her finances. 3 days after the confrontation, Evelyn called me just after sunrise. Her voice was low and electric. Adam, I think we found something. I was sitting by the lake, sipping coffee from a thermos, staring at the rising mist. That sounds like the kind of something that makes people nervous. Oh, they'll be nervous, all right. The rezoning documents you mentioned, they bear your grandfather's signature. I froze. My grandfather's been dead for 8 years. That's why it's about to get very interesting, she said. Meet me at the county records office in Helena. Bring the original deed. The drive felt endless. Every mile of pine and dust made me angrier, not just at the HOA, but at how easily people could twist paperwork into power. When I arrived, Evelyn was already there, standing by a dusty table stacked with ledgers. A clerk hovered nearby, pale and jittery. This is it, Evelyn said, laying out 2 documents side by side. The first is the rezoning approval from 5 years ago. The second is your grandfather's last verified signature from the 2014 transfer, she pointed at them. Look closely. Even my untrained eye saw it. The slant was off, the loops in the C of Carter too smooth. That's not his handwriting, I said quietly. Evelyn nodded. Exactly. Someone forged this to include your land in the HOA's development zone. The HOA board couldn't have done it alone. They needed help from someone inside the county office. The clerk swallowed hard, shifting in his seat. Look, I don't know everything, but there were rumors. Karen Whitmore's husband, he works in local zoning. They were pushing the permit fast. The file went missing for months before resurfacing. Evelyn's eyes sharpened. That's enough to start a fraud motion. The clerk leaned in. They've built 86 homes on that stolen land. If this goes public, it'll destroy the whole subdivision. I folded my arms. Then maybe it's time people learn what happens when you build lies on someone else's dirt. That night, Evelyn drafted the preliminary fraud petition, and by morning, it was filed. Within 24 hours, the news broke. The local paper ran it first. Forgery scandal at Copper Ridge, HOA, questionable land, claims under fire. Then the calls started. Reporters, developers, even a few nervous homeowners. By the time I reached the lake, Karen was already waiting. She was standing by the half-finished community gate, hands trembling, sunglasses hiding her eyes. You think you've won? She said as I stepped out of my truck. I think the truth's finally louder than you, I said. She took a shaky breath. You're ruining people's homes, Adam. Families have moved in. Kids are enrolled in schools. Do you even care? I stared at her for a moment. You didn't care when you bulldozed my father's barn, did you? When you signed a dead man's name just to make your HOA richer, that hit her. She flinched. You don't understand how business works, she said quietly. We were told it was approved. My husband just pushed the paperwork through. Your husband forged it, I said. And you used it. She didn't answer. Her eyes darted toward the half-built homes across the hill, the same houses now frozen under court order. Construction had stopped. Workers were packing up. Trucks sat idle. That silence between us stretched long and thin. Finally, she whispered, "What happens now?" I turned toward the water. Now, you get to find out what happens when the law actually favors the honest man. The sound of distant hammers fell quiet behind us. The entire site seemed to hold its breath. Later that night, Evelyn called again. She's cracking, she said. They know they're caught. But we're not done. Her husband's name just surfaced in an offshore account tied to the construction firm. I exhaled slowly. So it wasn't just fraud. It's laundering. Exactly, Evelyn said. We just leveled up from civil to criminal. When Evelyn told me the district attorney wanted to meet, I knew it wasn't going to be casual. I sat across from a polished mahogany table in Helena's DA office, the smell of fresh coffee and tension thick in the air. Mr. Lorne, the DA began, what you uncovered, this isn't just property fraud. It's racketeering, forgery, and public corruption. If we file charges, it'll shake the entire Copper Ridge HOA to the ground. I leaned forward. Then file them. He nodded slowly. We already did. Within hours, Karen's husband, Michael Whitmore, was arrested at his office, caught trying to wipe county records from his laptop. The news spread faster than wildfire in a dry forest. Every homeowner in Copper Ridge suddenly realized their $450,000 homes might not even belong to them. TV vans lined the subdivision entrance. Reporters shouted questions. HOA members scrambled to save. Face and Karen, the woman who had spent months pretending to own everything around her, was now the one avoiding every camera. Evelyn, and I drove past the site the next morning. Construction had completely stopped. Orange tape fluttered in the wind. Piles of unfinished lumber stood abandoned, like tombstones of someone else's greed. Karen's SUV was parked crookedly near the sales office. She was sitting inside, sunglasses off, mascara running, phone clutched tight in her hand. When she saw me, she stepped out and yelled, "You don't get it, Adam? You think this is justice? You're destroying innocent lives!" I stopped, resting my hand on my truck door. "You destroyed them when you built lies on stolen ground," her voice cracked. "I didn't know Michael did that. He told me the deed was clean." Evelyn stepped forward calmly. "Mrs. Whitmore, ignorance isn't innocence. You signed every HOA permit, every illegal sale, every press release claiming this community was approved." Karen's shoulders trembled. "He said it was all handled. I wanted to build something beautiful." Evelyn's voice softened. "Then maybe start with truth next time." Karen lowered her head, tears streaking down her cheeks. "They'll ruin us. My husband, my son, you ruined yourselves," I said. "All I did was bring a flashlight." For a moment, she just stood there in the wind, staring at the community that had become a ghost town overnight. Behind her, a for sale banner flapped half-torn against a plywood sign that once read Copper Ridge, luxury lakeside living. 2 weeks later, the trial began. The courthouse was packed. Developers, homeowners, journalists. Everyone wanted to see the man who'd been quietly holding the real deed walk in. When I took the stand, the room was silent. Evelyn handed me the leather folder. Inside was my grandfather's deed, the same one the Whitmores had buried under false paperwork. The DA asked, "Mr. Lorne, can you tell the court what this document represents?" I took a breath. "It represents 47 acres of my family's history, land that was stolen by people who thought signatures meant more than integrity." I handed the folder over. The jury leaned forward, eyes locked. When Karen took the stand, she looked 10 years older. Her hands shook as she swore in. The DA's questions were gentle but sharp. "Mrs. Whitmore, were you aware that your husband had forged this man's deed?" She hesitated, lips quivering. I suspected something wasn't right, but I didn't. I didn't stop him." And when the first home sold? She broke then, tears streaming freely. I just wanted it all to go away. I thought if we built fast enough, no one would look back. The DA nodded grimly. They always look back, Mrs. Whitmore. As I watched her break down, I didn't feel joy or victory, just a strange kind of quiet, the kind that comes when justice isn't about revenge. It's about setting things right. When I left the courtroom that afternoon, the air felt lighter. The mountains in the distance stood tall and cold, the same as they'd been for generations, and for the first time in years, the land, my land, finally felt like it was breathing again. The courthouse was quieter than I expected on verdict day. No cameras, no shouting reporters, just the low hum of conversation and the echo of polished shoes on marble floors. I sat near the back with Evelyn beside me, staring down at the floor tiles. 3 months had passed since that first hearing, and the whole Copper Ridge saga had turned into a state scandal. The Whitmores had pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud and forgery. The development company was bankrupt. Half the HOA resigned. The other half was under investigation, but none of that mattered right now. I just wanted it to be over. The judge, an older man with silver hair and tired eyes, shuffled his papers and spoke. After reviewing all evidence and testimony, the court finds in favor of Mr. Adam Lorne. The disputed 47 acres are to be returned to the Lorne estate, effective immediately. My breath caught. Karen, sitting beside her lawyer, didn't move. Her husband's seat was empty. He was already serving time in county jail. When the judge continued, his voice softened slightly. As for Mrs. Whitmore, the court acknowledges her cooperation during investigation and her admission of guilt. Sentence: 12 months community service, suspended HOA license, and permanent restriction from managing public land affairs. It wasn't harsh, but it was enough. Evelyn smiled faintly and touched my shoulder. "It's done, Adam." I looked toward Karen. Her face was pale, eyes red, but when our eyes met, she didn't glare like before. She just nodded slightly, like a silent truce between two people who'd both lost something. Outside, snow flurries drifted through the cold Montana air. The courthouse steps were slick, and as I descended them, the crowd of reporters began shouting questions. "Mr. Lorne, what will you do with the land now? Are you going to rebuild the cabin? Do you forgive the HOA?" I just smiled faintly and kept walking. Later that afternoon, I drove back to the property. The road was quiet now. No bulldozers, no laborers, no blueprints pinned to signs. The lake shimmered beneath a cloudy sky, and the air smelled of pine and frost. Half of the cabin stood unfinished, ghostly silhouettes against the horizon. Tarps flapped in the wind where roofs had been left open. When I reached the old cabin site, I stopped. The bulldozer tracks had long faded, and someone, maybe one of the locals, had placed a small wooden cross near the edge of the fence. Carved into it were the words, "For what was lost." I stood there for a long time, listening to the water lap gently against the shore. Then I took out the deed, opened it, and looked at my grandfather's name etched in fading ink. Evelyn had offered to help me sell the land, said it could fetch millions if I wanted to walk away clean. But standing there, I realized that wasn't what this was ever about. This land wasn't just dirt and property lines. It was memory. It was the echo of my father hammering nails on a summer morning, the smell of cedar, the way my grandfather's laugh bounced off the lake. So instead of selling it, I decided to restore it. Not into a resort. Not into a development, just into what it always was, home. 3 months later, I began rebuilding. This time, the cabin wasn't just mine. The local carpenters who'd once worked for the HOA showed up on their own time. A retired sheriff helped install the fence. Even a few of the homeowners who'd bought into the fraud brought paint, nails, and lumber. Karen came by once, near sunset. She stood quietly by the fence line, holding a small box. Inside it were the HOA's original documents, the fake blueprints, the contracts, the lies. She handed it to me without a word. I nodded, and she turned away. No apologies. No excuses. Just an ending. That night, as the fire crackled in the rebuilt cabin, I looked out the window toward the lake. The reflection of the moon shimmered across the water like silver threads, clean, peaceful, untouched. It was over, and for the first time in years, it felt like Montana was finally breathing again. It's been 2 years since that courtroom verdict, and if you drove past the Copper Ridge sign today, you'd never guess what happened here. The fake luxury estates sign is gone, replaced by a wooden archway that simply reads, Lorne Preserve. A dirt trail runs through the tall grass, lined with wildflowers and the sound of wind brushing through pine. The lake reflects the morning sun like glass. Every time I walk this land now, I can still trace the scars. The flattened soil where bulldozers once stood, the cracked posts of the old fence, the ghost outlines of the cabins that never should have been built. But nature has a way of healing, even faster than people do. Evelyn visits often. She left the real estate firm after the trial and started a local nonprofit that protects private landowners from HOA fraud. We work together sometimes, going through dusty ledgers, finding the next forgotten deed story before it becomes a headline. And Karen Whitmore, she disappeared for almost a year after her sentencing. When she came back, she was different. She bought a small bakery in town away from the HOA circles and gossip chains. People said she started volunteering at community centers, teaching others how to avoid legal scams. I don't know if she did it out of guilt or redemption, but either way, it's something. Last month, she sent me a letter. No apology. No excuses. Just one line written in blue ink. You were right about one thing. We build too much and remember too little. I kept the letter pinned above my workbench in the cabin. The new cabin is small, just 2 rooms and a porch that faces the lake. I built it myself with the help of a few old friends from town. Sometimes they bring their kids up here to fish or camp. The laughter that echoes through the trees doesn't sound like intrusion anymore. It sounds like life. This morning I walked down to the edge of the lake where the old fence still stands. A family of deer crossed the shallows, moving slowly through the mist. The air smelled like wet pine and clean soil. I thought of my grandfather then. How he used to say, land doesn't belong to you. Adam, you belong to it. Maybe that's what this was all about. Not ownership, not revenge, just balance. I took out the deed again, the same one that started all of this, and held it for a long moment. The paper had yellowed even more now, fragile and soft at the edges. Then I did what I should have done long ago. I placed it in a wooden frame and hung it on the wall of the cabin, right above the fireplace. Not as proof of ownership, but as a reminder. Because this place isn't mine to keep. It's mine to remember. As the sun climbed higher over the lake, I sat on the porch with a mug of coffee. The light spilled across the water, turning everything gold. The fences, the grass, the wood, even the old logging stumps near the hill. The wind carried faint laughter from the trail below, some hikers enjoying the preserve, and for the first time I didn't feel angry or defensive or haunted. I just felt home. They tried to erase my land. They buried it under concrete, greed, and signatures. But in the end, the land outlasted them all. The land remembered. Some people build houses, some build lies, but my grandfather built something stronger, a promise that truth always finds its way back home. The HOA tried to erase my land, my name, and my history, but they forgot one thing: I kept the receipts. Now, my land stands free again, quiet, honest, untouchable. If you enjoyed this story, like, share, and subscribe for more HOA dramas, where karma always finds its way home.